All right, we're here in the Cheese and Grain. I'm with the Fox, Kian Kelly from SC. Cut. The Fox, Kian Kelly from CSF Wrestling. I got it right. I almost said DFS, the sofa company.
Sell you a sofa, no problem.
I'll sell you a sofa and then pile drive you through it. Yeah, you've been coming to this town for a long time, haven't you? You guys, like, what's the story of you lot?
So CSF has been around for 23 years now. So it's a bit of an anniversary year, and obviously, after the coronavirus stuff, we're trying to come back with a bit of a boom, bring the community back together. But it's been quite a journey. There's several promotions throughout the UK, and it's well established on the TV. With WWE and AEW and these other big brands. But there is multiple promotions, but CSF has been one of the ones in British wrestling that has stuck around and is still here. So, they're obviously doing something right.
Yeah. I mean, how do you weather that? I mean, because there's always, this is kind of very grassrootsy wrestling, isn't it? You come to like people's towns and you put on a good show and everything. It's not quite the same as WWE, which has that whole television thing. How do you guys compete with WWE, or do you think there's enough of a removal from that world that you can kind of easily operate on your own sort of terrain?
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it there. We're our own product. Most wrestlers are independent contractors, so they work for various different promotions. CSF to me personally is one that has been a bit of a home base. So, I've stuck with the company sort of through thick and thin, and I've been one of sort of the mainstays and regular performers over, the vast majority of the years. Everyone always sort of, as soon as you say wrestling, WWE is obviously the top dog. It's where we all aspire to be. We all tune into it. We've got to keep up to date with everything. But, CSF is his own little baby. Stuart Natt, the promoter, is a very successful gentleman. He takes a lot of pride and preparation into his production. And, ultimately, whichever venue he goes to, he puts on a good show. So he's been able to keep us going through reputation. Like you say, a lot of this stuff will take place, leisure centres, theatres, corn exchanges, town halls, etc. So, compared to those American big boys, if you like, it is a lot smaller scale. But, of course, I'm going to be biased. But as a talent, I'd like to argue that some of the stuff that we produce is just as on par, but maybe we just don't necessarily have the greater financial and TV or media backing, perhaps.
Right, yeah. That is an interesting thing, isn't it? Because you guys are constantly getting picked up to do trials and stuff for WWE. So someone's watching and someone's keeping an eye on what you guys are doing. So there's quality there for sure that WWE and these bigger boys, respect and look to. So tell me a little bit about those trials. Like, how does there talk around the locker room? Is it like, oh, so-and-so's got a WWE trial next week? It's like, bastard, well, I want one of them. Well, how does that go down? Like, how do you get yourself a trial for WWE? Because you were telling me before we came on here that you'd have done that yourself. So
yeah, no. I was very fortunate, and again, it just came through opportune. I think like every walk of life is kind of like who you know. I'd like to sit here and say that, obviously there is a lot of it is hard graft and hard work and open up a reputation, but a lot of it is over the course of time where you wrestle up and down the country, you network yourself, you meet various people, you've got to get the right eyes on you. But ultimately, like anything, if you make enough noise, you're going to create a bang. There's a lot of pressure on wrestlers these days because it's growing in popularity. And, not a lot of us are getting any younger and the bumps and bruises take its toll. So that can make it more difficult. But ultimately it is reputation, and social media is a huge part. Like, I've got to be honest, I'm not the best at that myself. And I've had to pick up that game. But social media is a huge part of it now. Obviously a lot of video clips and pictures and regular updates, working across various different promotions, lots of traveling. I think people underestimate as a wrestler how much traveling you do and the amount of sacrifices that we all make. I respect anybody that gets between the ropes because, I've got a family. There's many other people who've got families. Some people might have to have a second job as an income as well. So it can be tough. But, me in particular, I was lucky to go to the NXT UK camp in March this year.
Sick.
Yeah, no, it was really good. And, I was sort of a last minute call up, again, by chance, through my sort of second job, if you like, with the coronavirus. So, I was unable to do that. So I had a lot of free time. An opportunity came up. I met the criteria that they were looking for.
What is that criteria?
So at the time, they were looking for some extras who met a certain criteria. Somebody who was slightly older, over a certain height, and had a certain level of experience, and I managed to tick the boxes. And I got to do some incredible things. Sadly, from my own personal targets on this occasion, in terms of a TV performance wrestling, all the stuff I did wrestling based was obviously behind the camera, but I still massively grateful and hugely enjoyed it. So, obviously you get to train with, some of the lads who are at the top, and you get that experience. But, I got to do some on-camera stuff, such as some extra work like medic, a security guard, like being a member of the crowd, being involved in like the production side of things and seeing the backstage stuff. And, the tryout stuff is obviously jumping in with the sessions, seeing how you can hold up. So that's like the fitness and conditioning, running all the drills, getting in there. And, as much as people, I think, is quite commonly known, there is a theatre element and predetermined element of wrestling that everybody's aware of. But we have something that we call working on the fly. And much to people's surprise, sometimes you are put in a ring under severe pressure with somebody you don't know, and you just got to go. So that can be often a reflection of your work to see how well you cope within that environment. So there's lots of mental challenges, there's lots of physical challenges. But, I got some really good feedback, which I was happy with. I was proud of myself. It come for me, that opportunity, a bit later in life. But yeah, I'm extremely grateful and I really enjoyed it. And, lots of my friends and other people in the business, and there's some other guys here today. So I ain't going to big him up too much because tonight he's my opponent. Eddie
Who are you
Ryan.
fighting tonight?
I'm taking on Eddie Ryan, so
Okay.
the English Lion. But he's, again, he's a well-respected worker.
Yeah.
We're as much friends as we are enemies. Tonight, all friendship goes out the window because, I want the gold that's sat right here in front of me.
Oh, he holds this belt, does he?
He's the one that holds it, and I'm going to be the one that takes it, baby.
Right.
Eddie Ryan, he had a couple of TV matches. He performed for them in Plymouth, which is his hometown. So he caused a real stir on his media front, and he had a real big push. So kudos to him. But he's going to have to step it up tonight.
He's going to have to bring his A game.
Taking on the Fox. So, he might have some muscles and tan and this, that, the other, but the Fox has got the brains. I got the tricks up my sleeve. So, the ref don't see it. It doesn't count, huh?
Yeah. Is it? Are you breaking the law if you don't get caught? Do you know what I mean?
This is it. I do what it takes to win. Simple as that.
Right.
There's no messing about.
Okay. So tell me about the Fox. Tell me, what's your story?
So,
Why are you? Because you're a heel, aren't you? Which is the bad guy.
This is it.
I'm guessing that Eddie Ryan, the British Lion, is a face, right?
Yeah, he's the baby face.
Right, which is the good guy. For anyone who doesn't know that much about the lingo in wrestling, you're the heel, so you're the fucking nasty one.
This is it. Yeah, so I'm often referred to as the villain. I prefer that role. My style's aggressive, smash mouth. I don't necessarily do anything pretty.
Right.
I'm not into all the flips and all the facade, if you like. I just get in there, get the job done. If I've got to whack you with a chair, no problem. If I've got to stick a cane over your head, no problem. If I've got to boot you in the nuts, no problem.
Oh.
As long as the ref don't catch me, I'm getting that win. So
Dirty.
This particular character has evolved over the years. The Fox, the actual name was given to me by a promoter back when I was a keen bean. I love wrestling. It's a huge part of my life. Like every wrestler, we have this divine passion. Me personally, when I was a kid, I watched the Hulk Hogans, I watched the Jake the Snake Roberts, etc., etc. I was obsessed, larger than life characters. Character work for me in storytelling is huge.
Right.
I'm saying about the no flips and stuff, to be honest, I just can't do them. There's some extremely talented gentlemen here today. For example, Jake McCluskey.
Right.
He's one that just springs to mind that, he can really fly and they do some great acrobatic stuff. There's guys like Will Ospreay out there as well who are, superb in that high flying environment. It's not my cup of tea. I'm not athletic enough to do it, but, I'm not afraid to get in the mix and, stick my head where it hurts as well, So That's what the Fox is about.
Yeah.
plain and simple, but I like to bring a bit of banter and beating with it. So a lot of my mates say I don't shut up, which is true. So I like to smash mouth. I like to talk a good game.
Yeah.
But I like the character side of things. It means to me that's an art within itself. So that's what I kind of strive towards. So I love winding up the punters.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say I heard that earlier. I mean, that reminded me of like those old school stories from like WCW days when guys had like what's known as like heat.
Yeah.
So the heel would like be out in the street and he'd be like doing his shopping, but because that old dear had seen him on the TV the night before, you know, doing the dirty on her favourite wrestler, she'd give him an earful.
Throw some baked beans at him or
something like that. And it's like there were people in wrestling that managed to get real heat.
Yeah.
And it would follow them in their actual day-to-day lives because people were so invested in their character and how dastardly they were that it would follow them around. And I noticed that earlier when I walked out into the foyer earlier when there's some fans knocking around waiting to come in.
Yeah.
And one of them went, "Oh, great, a wrestler!" And I thought, "Wow, that's a really nice compliment. I'm not a wrestler, but I probably should have been." And then you walked out and you were like, "Oh, you're an ugly bunch, aren't you?" I was like, "Yes."
You got to get that character working early.
Because they got to hate you when you come out there later on tonight, right?
This is it. You know, I'm always, don't get me wrong, like everyone's grandmother will teach them, manners cost nothing. And giving people respect costs nothing. And that's just qualities of life. But, you know, when I'm in this role, I'm here to do a job. So I'm damn right going to do it. Many years ago, I was very fortunate, just going to throw a name drop in there.
Go for it.
But I got to do some training with Jake the Snake Roberts.
Oh, yeah.
And he's, you know, if you're a wrestling fan, you know that his wrestling psychology and IQ's fantastic. He's often referred to as, you know, the genius and the best. And, you know, to be around him was amazing. And, you know, he was a big part of CSF's history as well.
Was he?
So he performed for CSF with the Honky Tonk Man on many tours.
When was this?
Do you know, I'm so bad with dates, but I'm going to say like early 2000s.
Okay, because there was a period of his life, wasn't there, which has been really well detailed in the, what's that documentary called? The Resurrection of Jake the Snake?
Yeah, the DDP one, yeah.
Yeah, and him and Scott Hall are in such a bad way with,
You got it, yeah.
with their addictions and their demons that they're almost crippled, aren't they?
Yeah,
All of
yeah.
that ring work is caught up with them.
For sure.
They've let themselves go. And there was that documentary is amazing about how he came back
Yeah.
to not to his prime because he was already past his prime, but back to a reasonable, healthy state. And lots of respect for Jake the Snake. But that's interesting that he's come and worked for you guys. I was wondering when that was because I don't know what he's doing now. Is he back in the ring?
I believe he's with AEW now, so he's still involved with wrestling.
Right.
And like you say, he's been on his personal journey. Like, I'm not one to judge anyone's personal life story, but obviously I've watched that myself, and you know, having that sort of reference to Jake, you know, I had my own take on it, and I enjoyed the time I spent with him. You know, he was a huge, huge personality back in the day. Like, I was a huge fan of him. What was actually quite nice is, my grandmother, the first ever Hasbro action figure I ever had wrestling was Jake the Snake Roberts. So there was already an attachment. But yeah, the point I was coming to with Jake anyway, just bringing him up, he always said to me, never go to a wrestling show aiming to be the best wrestler, because it's quite likely that you might most probably not be.
Right. Okay.
However,
interesting.
Always go with the mentality of getting the best reaction. And a few years later, the Gladiator film. You remember it with Russell Crowe?
Yeah, me and Harry watching a bit of it yesterday. Actually, we were testing the TV at mine, and we put that on as a
the quote. Win the crowd.
Right.
And wrestling's so relative to that. And I like to think sometimes my lack of ability to do flips, perhaps, but sometimes opening me gob on a microphone or how I act inside the ring. And, you know, reaction isn't always like, yeah, and boo. Sometimes it's laughter.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's physical hatred. Sometimes it's just the way people look at you, the feel in the room. And, that's what gives me the edge. That's what gives me the drive. I love it. And,
right.
So as long as people are booing me and enjoying the show, then it's a winner.
Right.
Know?
And are there certain places that you will like tour and perform in that are always good for a reaction? There are certain places where you're like, oh, we're going to, you brought Plymouth up earlier, we're going to Plymouth tonight, and they're always mad for it or something. Is there towns in this UK of ours where when you're going to Manchester, it's gonna be great. Like they're guaranteed spots where you're like, these people are just fucking wild for this shit.
To be fair, it's every place is different. Like I work in various locations, but for this particular occasion, I like to keep things CSF. But we not just because we're here, but Froome is a good one. We usually get quite a few in, and they get into it. Like there's a right local yokel bunch around here, and I like to let them know about that as well. And they seem to like me getting beat up as well. So I'm not a big fan of the Froome people for that.
Right.
So do one, Froomies. And then with the other places like we go to with CSF, many sort of in the southwest, but in Bath as well, Western, they're all really lively crowds. But to be honest, I couldn't pinpoint one particular place. But it's always good sometimes when you go across the bridge, like Wales, for instance, because they just immediately hate you if you're English. But
they've done half the work for you, haven't they?
This is it. And I want to back the locker room here, and I want to back the boys and all my wrestling colleagues, because I just feel wherever we are and whoever's on the card, they're there for a reason and they can get reaction.
Right.
So, I like to think we're going to get that sort of atmosphere wherever we go.
Yeah. Okay. So if you had to compare yourself and your style to another wrestler, so, for the listener who may not have seen you wrestle but may know a thing or two about wrestling, who would you say your closest sort of, match is in terms of you said you're Smash Mouth, which is probably a bit more Stone Cold, isn't it?
I've got hair though, so just about anyway.
Where if you had to compare yourself to some like a household wrestling name, who would you be the closest to in terms stylistically?
It's a difficult question, so I wouldn't ever want to answer that and people think, oh, you're definitely not.
He's Stone Cold.
Yeah, you're not as good as him, because I'm certain some of the names I might say, I'm certainly not on their level for sure. They're people I aspire to be, but I really like Jake the Snake Roberts in terms of the character stuff. I love Ted DiBiase, just for his $1 Million Man. I love Mr. Perfect.
Right.
So they're sort of guys I study personally.
Is that Paul Orn? Was that Paul Orndorff, Mr. Perfect?
No, Mr. Perfect was Kurt Hennig, but
With
Paul
the blonde hair.
That's correct. Yeah. Paul Orndorff was another wrestler. Yeah.
What was his thing? He had a
Mr. Perfect.
No, he had a thing, didn't he?
Is it Mr. Wonderful?
That's it, right? That's why I've got confused. Yeah.
It's but yeah, no, I do like the character-based wrestlers. I was a huge, Bret the Hitman Hart fan. I like his execution, how everything's so crisp and real. It just looks real. The storytelling. But there's a lot of British wrestlers as well. Again, I was trained by Danny Boy Collins, who is a well-renowned British wrestler. But I like to sort of take bits from sort of Fit Finlay.
Yeah.
Danny Boy Collins, particularly his dirty Danny Boy Collins days when he was a villain. So it's hard to pinpoint to one, if I'm honest. But even some of my friends now, in relative to this day, excuse me, I look up to a lot of people. So to me, one of the best wrestlers in the UK, still to this day, and he's well reputable in our industry, is James Mason.
Right.
Who can work quite easily as villain or babyface, if you like. So I've taken a lot from him. I believe there's another gentleman called Joel Redman who's world class. I've been lucky to be sort of mentored and friended by him as well. I take little bits from everybody, and if I see something really cool and I can do it, I'm stealing that.
Well, there's an old phrase that talent borrows, a genius steals.
Yeah, it's good that.
Yeah,
I like that.
So everything you see, which is fucking genius, they've stolen and made it better. So don't be afraid to steal.
But the thing is, when you're in wrestling, there's so many amazing different characters. Like I'm a big sort of British wrestling guy. So I try not to focus on the Americans. Obviously, WWE, like I say, WWF is a big part of a thing, but there's so many British wrestlers out there who have been doing this a long time. For instance, Tony Spitfires, Dean Allmarks, veterans, Doug Williams, who was with CSF last night in Devices and has performed here previously. These guys, again, are world class, and they rep the British style fantastically. I could name drop all day. Rampage Brown is a huge character that that I look to and study as well. You've got Drew McIntyre,
Right.
who I like because he's a big man wrestler. He does some cool stuff. But he performed as Drew Galloway for CSF Wrestling. He was a big part of their history. He was quite a regular, I'm guessing like 20 years ago. But when he first started out, CSF gave him an opportunity when he came down from Scotland. They gave him a format in British wrestling, and obviously he's gone on to have a fantastic career. He was WWE heavyweight champion, 5-6 months ago.
Right.
And he's an incredible talent as well.
Yeah, it's funny you say you like the big guys, because when I was a kid, I used to love The Undertaker and Kane. I used to be like, oh my God.
Yeah.
They are fucking amazing. Look how fucking big they are. And it's just, there is something about like
wow factor, right?
That giant wow, that kind of like where did you come from?
Yeah.
I don't see anyone that looks like you anywhere. Do you know what I mean? And they're in the ring fighting. I remember when I was a kid, I had the Just Bring It game guide for the PS2 game. And in there they had all these things about, they had all the stats for all the wrestlers and their heights and stuff. And I know WWE have been known to sort of slightly inflate people's
I'm like 6'5".
stats, right?
Yeah.
And I remember saying to my dad, who's like 6'4", oh, look at the Undertaker down. He's 6'8", and I think he was 6'8" in that book. I've still got the book somewhere at home. I'll have to check it out.
He's probably like
6'10" or something. No, I think he's 6. No, maybe they put him as 6'10".
Okay,
but he's 6'8", or I don't know. He's between 6'8" and 7.
Yeah.
Throughout the years, and Dad went, "Oh, it's too tall, isn't it? It's freakish." And now I'm 6'9". So it's just like, do you want to take that back, Dad?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know how you start in wrestling, like because people go, I was trained by so and so, and if when I was a kid, I really was seriously like, if someone had said to me, there's wrestling training in Frome somewhere, or speak to this guy and he'll teach you how to start wrestling, I would have done it.
Yeah,
I'd be sat there now.
I mean, it's crazy. I actually originally I'm a devices guy,
right?
And I don't know if it's one of those fake things. I was an obsessive wrestling fan when I was a kid and all through school and stuff, diehard wrestling fan. I loved wrestling. And, but I was an avid sportsman as well. I was playing a lot of sort of, amateur football, rugby, etc., local sports clubs. And I played a lot of, the two sports. And then basically, I chased the avenues of those. And like every young man, I wanted to be a pro footballer. And, when you soon realise that ain't going to happen. And I got to about 16, a bit of disillusion. Next step in 15 even, I believe, because I started wrestling at 16. But anyway, just an advert came in the local Gazette and Herald of a wrestling school opening in Devizes. And just like, what?
Right.
And my mum showed me, and I was like, this is amazing. And I phoned up the guy who was actually a CSF sort of veteran. His name was Andy Noble. Right. He doesn't perform anymore. He's retired. But he was, again, one of the CSF regulars back in the day. And they had like a sort of partner in promotion, which was called the Curtis Gifford Wrestling Association. Right. And Stuart Nat here, he was heavily involved with those as well. So it was like two promotions working together, if you like, but in different regions. And and I trained for about a year before I even had a match. And then sadly that company folded. And then I went to a company sort of down the road in Trowbridge, which was called UCW. And, again, they used to cover some very small venues, a very small family-based promotion, but, highlighted the American style. There was the Attitude Era as well, so that, that really inflated interest. But there was just some mad opportunities with them. So basically, from my own standpoint, I trained with this company in Devizes and sadly never did a match or a show, because the company folded, and sadly the guy who ran it, his father was ill health and passed away. But anyway, that folded, and then I saw this promotion, UCW, and a load of guys left them to set up a company called 4FW, and I thought, wow, they've all left them, so there must be a gap. And I actually made my debut in 2003 at this venue. So this venue is really special to me. Okay. And then, so I wrestled for UCW, and with that, long story short, again, name dropping again. And, if any of my friends listen to this, they'd be like, oh, here he goes.
Name.
Name drop, name drop, name drop.
I'm all about the name. Give me the name drops.
Yeah, but long story short, so I got to wrestle some really good British wrestlers from an FWA, which was like a huge indie wrestling promotion start back in the day. But then, I was on a show with AJ Styles, CM Punk, Raven, and then you had like the Sandmans, the Mick Foleys. They were doing these big shows in Wales. So this company was bringing in some huge talent. Obviously, their names weren't as big as they are now, but at that time, they were still huge names. And then
Mick Foley must have had Legend from Japan at this point, right? Or was that pre?
Possibly,
Did
yeah.
is this before he pulled his ear off in Germany or wherever he was?
Oh no, I think that was all that damage was done by them for sure. I'm not that old, Jesus. But no, I'm just I'm throwing in those names because if you imagine I was just a sort of 16, 17-year-old, and to be honest, I was probably well out of my depth. I know that now, and there was a few matches that I had with guys that were brought in, and I was just like, wow, there's people out there that are doing some good stuff, and then later down the years, like even CSF now. As I've gone through my journey, CSF has some great imports as well. Like I said, Jake St. Roberts, Honky Tonk Man, Juventud Guerrera, Sabu, Al
Sabu?
Snow. Yeah.
Have you met Sabu?
Yeah, no,
Is he a fucking madman?
He is a madman.
Those scars are real all over his body, right?
Everything, 100% that you read, everything he is like just crazy.
What is it with him? Like, did you get to what? Like
the bolts are loose upstairs, but
yeah,
real sound bloke, really lovely, and always willing to give like knowledge and stuff like that. Like he, don't get me wrong, the conversations weren't in length with him, but he's just a normal guy. But get him in the ring, there's nothing he won't do, and even as he got older, like he'd still throw himself about. And it's stuff like that sometimes, like any industry, like you see some of the younger wrestlers now and a few of the moans and groans that men might have, and then you see guys like that, like their bodies have been through everything,
Sabu is the first match I ever saw Sabu. I was in. You remember when Woolworths was a thing?
Yeah.
They had like a bargain bin of VHS tapes.
Get on those.
And there was ECW. That was like November to Remember or something. One of these like compilation things.
Yeah.
And I was like, what's this? But it was wrestling, so I had to have it.
Yeah.
And that was my first introduction to ECW.
Yeah.
But it was Sandman versus Sabu. And it was just, there was more tables and ladders and shit than I'd ever seen in the hardcore section of WWE, which only came about as a reaction to ECW, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But it was absolutely fucking mental. He was bleeding everywhere, and he was going through like 3 tables at a time. The fucking ladders were bent, and then there's that gnarly footage where they've got the ring ropes have been
with the barbed wire
swapped out for barbed wire, and he catches his bicep on the barbed wire, and his bicep falls out of his arm, and he gaffer tapes it up in the ring and carries on. He is fucking mental.
Hard.
I love it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm not going to put myself over as hard as that, because definitely not. Again, personally, not my style.
Yeah,
but it's definitely got an audience, And
me.
And to me, yeah. And to me, he was a big deal. And again, I'm grateful to CSF Wrestling because they bring over these guys, and obviously you asked me earlier about production and reputation, this, that, the other. Well, I think it says a lot about itself. If these guys are willing to come over and work for a company, then obviously, like I say, Stuart Natt, the promoter, is obviously doing a good job. You know what I mean? Because it's a good reflection on him. As soon as I said the name, you're like, whoa,
Yeah.
And
this is my childhood.
Yeah, and you didn't even know it was a thing, but like. This is what I'm saying about British wrestling. Sometimes this is where we rely on the support of the fans and like people like yourself. Even if you're not like a diehard wrestling fan, just support your local wrestling promotions, because the more support we receive, the better product we can give you.
Right.
And it's great when you bring over these guys. Like, we love it, because don't get me wrong, we're all wrestling fans inside. So we aspire to some of these guys. So it's great. When we get to be on a wrestling card for some of these guys. These are guys I watched as a kid.
Yeah.
And then you're in a locker room with them. It's great. We had the Nasty Boys here.
Oh, right. Okay.
Again, I'm so bad with dates, but I think it was in the last few years, but we had the Nasty Boys come here. So Stuart brought them over. And I've just never had so much fun. Just listening to their stories and some of the things that they got up to. And, it's great. It was just like a live autobiography. And And then they come and they come watch your match and they give you some feedback. And then as a performer, that's great. Like Jerry Saggs was like, he's like, oh, you was on the crowd and you did a great job, brother. And I was just like, that's sweet. Like, I was buzzing.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I say, it's like a novelty. It's crazy. Like 1 minute wrestling, as you pointed out, you could be in front of 50 people in a village hall or a kiddie's birthday party. It can be as low key as that. Then you're here at the Cheese and Grain with 300 people, and then you're in a pavilion in a massive city, and then you got 2,000 people. But we as performers, I'm sure everybody would agree, it's just we have a buzz for what we do. We're passionate at what we do, and we're there to entertain. We're sports entertainers. We know our job, and we go about doing it.
So tell me about injuries, because as you said, you get how old are you now?
I'm 35. I had to think then, yeah. I'll put the cap on to cover up the bald spots.
Yeah, I'm doing the same thing, man. So yeah, tell me about the injuries, because me and Harry were chatting before we started all this, and I was telling Harry about D'Lo Brown and Droz, and how that one fateful powerbomb that they'd done a million times before, and that I was saying that D'Lo had a really good reputation for being a safe guy in the ring, and he was on his way up, and it was all looking good. And I was saying like Droz was like such a great specimen of a man. Do you know what I mean? He clearly worked on himself and put the time in. And one powerbomb goes slightly weird. Yeah. And was it quadriplegic from the neck down? Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying, tell me about all those things if you've come, but like, tell me about the injuries and stuff. Like, what is on the road to, say you're going to WWE? Yeah. And that's your goal. What are you expecting on the way there? A lot. What's regular? What's normal that you just power through? And maybe tell me one of your gnarlier stories. Go on. It's
But I mean, just in general, what to expect. Like I say, lots of traveling, lots of lack of sleep, having to train in the gym, because obviously, even if you're not like a massive muscle hound, you've got to have a level of conditioning to wrestle.
Right. Which is interesting. Looking around there earlier. Yeah. Because I did say to Harry, actually, we'd probably be expecting loads of gorillas knocking about. But it's not going to be that way, because there are people who I've seen enough of the ECW stuff. And I've seen enough documentaries about the lower key promotions and stuff, where you look at these guys and you're like, you work in Sainsbury's. And then like, now you're doing that. And it's like, they don't look like Hulk Hogan or The Rock or whatever. Yeah. So it is interesting to see that it's all shapes and sizes, all like heights and weights and everything. And it's interesting to see, like, because some of these guys, no offense to the guys downstairs, but some of them downstairs, I'm like, are you going to be able to do a whole match? Like, because you're a big guy. And then they're going to do it though, aren't they? And it's like crazy how your appearance and how your fitness can be two different things at some points.
And that point you make, just bang on there. I mean, you open up a conversation I could go on for hours with, like you say, in terms of appearance. But it's just gone out of my mind. But you made a really good point there that just skipped my head. Sorry, what was the last thing you just said there?
About so look at is it Kevin Owens? What was his name? Kevin Owens, who had the ball tattoo thing in WWE. I always used to look at him and think, you're not in shape. Yeah. But then you watch him work, and you're like, no, you're fitter than I am. Do you know what I mean? Like
this, you just reminded me. But yeah, there's no preparation for wrestling fitness other than doing it.
Right.
Like I say, from rugby and football background, it's just a different kind of fitness.
Yeah.
But coming back to the injuries, like the bumps and bruises are real. Like I really hate the F word, fake. Let's put it out there. Like I get insulted when people call it fake, because I've spent days in agony on the back of entertaining people. I've seen friends put their bodies through hell to then be called fake. I take predetermined, I take sports entertainment, no problem, but this is far from fake. We do hit each other, we do punch each other. Sometimes you're going to get smashed in the face, sometimes you're going to get kicked where it hurts. Like, we make contact. We're there to do a professional job, so we're professionals. We're trained in a specific way, but it's far from fake. And like I say, you get bashed up, you get beat up. The first thing I'll say from my own personal perspective is I often say, like, it's similar to rugby and paintball. So when you go paintballing, you get shot, it friggin' hurts.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no two ways about it. It friggin' kills. But you love it. You love the game. So you keep going and getting shot and you get over it. The rugby, like, you know, you catch the ball, some 6'8" monster smashes you into the deck. It hurts, but you love the game. So you get on with it. Every time we hit the mat, every time we take a bump, every time someone decks us in the chin, we love it. Do you know what I mean? It's not ballet. Like, sometimes a fella's going to catch you and you got to deal with that.
Is that called a potato?
Yeah, you got it. Yeah. So sometimes a fella might dish out a potato.
Which is a closed fist strike, isn't it?
You got
which
it.
makes contact, right?
It's so yeah, they come along sometimes. You know, me personally, I've been knocked out. I've suffered some concussions. But it's hard to see it because sometimes you sit and you're just like, oh, yeah, this guy thinks he's hard and this, that. But, you know, I've had some dislocations. And you know, you pull a lot of muscles, you tear some muscles, ligaments. You know, touch wood, I've been very fortunate in terms of breaks. They've been minor. It's just been like thumbs and this, like, yeah, very small things. But, you know, you take a lot of knocks in your backs and your necks. They, you know, your bulging discs and this, that, the other. Arthritis comes along quite accelerated. Your joints are pretty messed up. Like, and yeah, but good wrestlers, they learn to work around their injuries. Like even today, for instance, I don't know if you look at my arm there, you can see that it's all pretty swollen up, and you know, I'm all pretty.
It's a little blue.
Yeah. So I've got a lot of bruising on the bone there. I haven't got full movement in my thumb. You know, I've been struggling a bit with that.
Fuck, that's the arm wrestle out the way.
Yeah,
shit.
But you know, it's like, but again, not in a tough guy way. But it's, you know, I want to perform tonight. You know, the promoters put me in a championship title match, and I want to win this belt. I want to, you know, I want to go over social media and be like, hey, I'm the champion of CSF. So, you know, a beat up and bruises and, you know, messed up thumb ain't going to stop me. Do you know what I mean? It's, you know, I know it sounds really minor and stuff, but these little things, you know, they clock up. The more matches you do, the more miles you do. And you got to realise that sometimes we're sitting in the car for 4 or 5 hours going from one end of the country to the other.
Yeah.
And then we're going to go in there and put our bodies in physical hell and then drive back again.
Yeah.
It's not an easy task, you know? So this business and this wrestling industry isn't for everybody. Like, people love the idea of it, and then when they come in, they get found out. And so, you know, when guys have been around for quite a few numbers of years, you know, you have a bit of sort of respect within your rapport and your peers, you know, because you have to respect people that, you know, step between the ropes and, you know, get on with it. It's tough.
That was an interesting thing that we clocked as well. It's just hanging around while the setup was happening today. Is you expect some dudes to come in, you know, and be like, you know, ego, fucking, you know, coming in, a bit of like diva shit or
There's
whatever.
A few of them. There's a few.
Oh, isn't there? Because we haven't seen them yet.
It's good here.
But it was like, you know, like some of the gnarliest looking dudes come in and they come straight over to you and they're like, hello, mate, how you doing? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, I don't fucking know who you are, but hi. Like, you know, and everyone, you know, there was seemed to be a real culture of dudes coming in and just being super respectful and just being like, hey, nice to see you, and like just saying hello to everyone. And we were joking. It's like, hi, how are you? I'm going to kick your fucking head in there.
But no, there is actually like an etiquette in wrestling's got like some weird etiquettes, but one of them is like you kind of leave your ego at the door. Now, don't get me wrong, you know,
it's showtime.
There's politics and everything, and there's, you know, there is that part of wrestling, this showmanship, and you get your celebrity divas and this, that, the other, prima donnas or whatever, and you know, some people get carried away with themselves, but it's only natural. You've got to have a sense of arrogance and confidence to get some places sometimes in this industry. It's really cutthroat. But yeah, we have like this thing where, you know, because at the end of the day, we're going in there and battering each other. There's no doubts about it. So you're kind of like sort of coming in, shaking hands to be like, you know, we're all, you know, kicking each other's ass, but we're all good. Do you know what I mean? It's no malice. But everyone sort of respects one another. Like I say, we're professionals at what we do. And there is that culture. But yeah, obviously the higher you go at the ranks and like when the big bucks come involved, of course there's going to be politics, and of course there's going to be, but you know, when you're in there with another performer, you're expected to have some, you know, common grounds of respect. And, you know, wrestling's quite funny in that way. It's quite unique. But yeah, like anybody sort of backstage, you know, CSF is over time is used sort of a pod of wrestlers. So you get to know everybody. You get to know people's sort of personal lives. You know what people are about. So, you know, it is almost like a community, like sometimes almost as close as family. You know, you got to some of these guys, like, you spend hours on the road with, so you learn a bit about them, you know?
Interesting. Yeah, that is. Yeah, I've done the same in bands. I've toured.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
done,
similar
it's-
kind of
it's
lifestyle,
Like
yeah.
the bit I miss the most about that is not actually stage time,
Yeah.
but it's sat in the van with your best buds, and there is that kind of, you have that bond.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's the bit I miss, is just being somewhere out in Europe or wherever, and just like kicking back, chatting, laughing, and there's something about it.
No, I'm with you. It's like, and again, we often sometimes not in a arrogant way at all, like dismissive way, but sometimes we often say, "God, the wrestling gets in the way," because like just the banter, the road trips, the sort of brotherhood, if you like, and we get to visit lots of different locations. Like like I say, wrestling is like a traveling circus. You go to loads of different places, you meet lots of different people, you do a lot of networking. It opens up lots of opportunities and different, to different people from all kinds of life, walks of life. So yeah, it is quite like that. It's that's what makes it special. I mean, I love it.
Yeah.
And I'm a bit of a people person, so it's good for me.
I love it.
The 40-minute mark now, should probably need to wrap it up.
Awesome. All right, cool. Yeah, we don't want to keep you from kicking ass. Let me just ask you one thing. If you get that belt tonight, what's next?
What's next is that everybody that comes along is just another customer of pain.
Oh.
So, I'm planning on taking that, and I'm going to shine it up real nice. I'm going to put it with my fur jacket. I'm going to strut my stuff and wear it with pride. And anyone that wants to come along, I'm quite happy to kick their teeth in. Not a problem. And I'm happy to boast about it down the mic and let everyone know who the champ is.
You the man. The Fox. Kian Kelly, thank you very much, my man.
Thanks for your time.